It might be the play of the year. It might be the play of the year for the Golden State Warriors. It's one of the highlights of the year for maybe the entire NBA. You have E40 basically picking Jordan Poole up off of his lap, throwing him back out on the court, go back out there. The ball finds him again. He hits the three. You got Steph giving the Google eyes, very excited, right in front of the bench. Look good, feel good, play good, Ray. There's something to it. And the Warriors are starting to look good. They're starting to feel good, and they're starting to play good. The defense is clearly something that they're interested in. And, the coach, I think, has made things interesting. Instead of, I guarantee you, it's a lot easier to talk about basketball than it is to go out and play it. Don't we prove that almost on a daily basis?
Oh, no. Every time we speak, we weaken the nation.
No doubt about it. It is so much easier to talk about sports than it is to go play sports. And that applies for the coaches as well. I am sure that Steve Kerr knows enough about this game where he gives this team a pretty spot-on, please execute through the scouting report playbook of defensive ideas that just, for whatever reason, just have not been executed by this team since the All-Star break started. Or, since pre-All-Star break. It just, whatever Steve was sending was not being received. The message is now being received, and it's being implemented.
It might not be that the message wasn't received. It might be that there weren't enough people who could acknowledge it. I think this might have been a mediocre defensive team because, let's start, well, first of all, you take Green off because he's always excellent defensively. You take Looney off because he is more than a plus defensively.
Does the job.
Wiggins has not been as effective. Thompson certainly hasn't because he's still been recovering from those two catastrophic injuries. And then where's your next elite defender? I mean, they used to have 5 or 6 guys they could rely on to help get stops. They don't really have that anymore. So I don't know that it was necessarily them not listening. I think it's they couldn't perform.
But they're even more shorthanded now than before. Without Curry, without Wiggins, the fact that they've just put together 4 of their best defensive halves of the entire year means something different is taking hold of this team, and it's happening at halftime. And I don't know if that is Steve, basically scrapping a game plan that wasn't working to go to something that was working, or putting in these boutique defenses that are tailor-made for that night's opponent, so everybody is a little bit more interested and a little bit more bought into the concept of tonight, because we all need to do our jobs for this wrinkle to work. And when the wrinkle does work, again, look good, feel good, play good. It creates further investment, further buy-in. There's also the time of the year where it's, if you're going to man up, now would be the time to do it.
And one other thing, not to interrupt, but they've all happened at home. And the test will be when they're the guys who get introduced first. That'll be when we'll find out if they are indeed the defensive team they were a year ago, or if they just still like playing at home and don't like playing on the road.
So you agree with me then that who you are at home is who you hope to be, but who you are on the road is who you really
no question.
are.
I mean, but this is a team that more than handled its business on the road for most of the last decade.
It sure did.
This year, they are an abysmal team. And people who follow the NBA assiduously will tell you that being 7-23 and having championship aspirations are almost mutually exclusive propositions. And that's what the Warriors are right now. They believe they are good enough to make a deep enough run so that they might be one of the last 4, maybe one of the last 2. But they've shown no indication when they're away from home that they are anything but a team that's near tanking. That's the amazing dichotomy of all of this, is that 20 games ago it was a weird stat. Now it's how they're being defined. People are looking at it going, well, why can't you ever win? I mean, they're not winning. They're barely winning 20% of their games away from home. That's preposterous for a team with aspirations.
No, it does not make sense. They have been. This is why by the way, there is no more you know how it's when the Warriors were truly at their very best, you could look at Steph Curry and you could just take Steph and say he is the embodiment of Warriors basketball. He stands for everything this team does at an excellent level of execution. This year's team, you know who embodies them more than anyone else? It is Jordan Poole. Because Jordan Poole is the most that minute of spectacular basketball that I just watched was unbelievable. That minute of out of control, undisciplined basketball that I just watched was maddening. Oh, there's another maddening minute. Oh, followed by an unbelievable minute, followed by another unbelievable shot, followed by 3 ridiculous turnovers on 3 straight possessions, followed by a fourth quarter that makes you say, thank God that guy's on our team. Like Jordan Poole is a little bit of a schizophrenic player. He is either putting it on or taking it off the table. He's spectacular last night, while also being frustrating at times. But he went to the line, God bless him, 12 times. He had 11 of his free throws, and he had 34 points on 20 shots last night. It was a good night for Jordan Poole. It really was. But he is the embodiment of Warriors basketball. He is either really locked in and playing something else, like hair on fire, great basketball, or it's a little bit of a, you can't win like this declaration.
No, this is not a precise comp, and I am not trying to compare him to this player. But he is young Jason Kidd in that he thrives in chaos. If he doesn't, join something that's chaotic, he makes things chaotic. It took Jason Kidd about 3 years to figure out that you don't get to determine how fast everybody else on the floor plays. Sometimes you've just got to merge onto the highway and go the speed limit with everybody else. And when he does that, he's very good. He doesn't do it enough yet. And sometimes when he's not good at it, he's spectacularly bad at it.
How do you teach a fast player to slow down? We've asked Steve. We've asked Steve that direct question. It's a hard ask. It's a tough thing to do.
And trust me when I tell you, without knowing this as an absolute fact by seeing it, that's the conversation that they have had endless numbers of times. And it isn't easy to make a fast player slow down. And it's really not easy to make an undisciplined player disciplined, because discipline eventually has to become second nature. And most guys don't ever get it. So it's not like Jordan Poole is somehow a massive failure or he's an extreme example of a guy who doesn't get it. He's getting it more than he used to, but he's not getting it often enough.
It's the classic John Wooden, be quick, but don't hurry. He's hurried.
Well, he's hurried, and he tends to get locked into what he's doing. And this is not a team where that works. Stephen Curry, it would be a fine percentage play if he shot every time down the floor. But he doesn't. He almost never takes 30 shots. And when he does take 30 shots, it's because he's making 22 of them. He's a guy who learned very early on that it wasn't about him, it was about them. And I think that's something that Jordan Poole is still figuring out. And it happens in fits and starts.
What I think has slowed that development, or maybe the developmental track, is because he's being caught a little bit in between two different asks. When I'm starting and when I'm playing with the starting 5, that's a different ask than it is when you're the 6th man coming off the bench and now Steph and Clay are out of the game and you are the bus driver. So that's when you want Jordan Poole to be the guy who is maybe a little bit more selfish with his usage rate, because there isn't another real pure scorer on the floor. And that is identity crisis is the wrong way to describe it, but the Jekyll and Hyde nature of Jordan Poole.
But the problem with that is that when you want him to be that guy because the other scorers are off the floor, it encourages standing around because they're all waiting for him to figure out what he's going to do with the ball. And his next great advancement as a player is going to be how to involve everybody else and make the offense run. Not make the offense run around him, make the offense run, because he can give up the ball, and he's just got to be secure enough to know that it's eventually going to come back to him, because the task is not to get the first good shot you see. The task is to get the best shot out of the possession.
In the shot clock.
And, it doesn't mean grinding the clock down to 5. It means moving the ball so that the 24-footer that you're looking at now can maybe become a 21-footer from the corner, or it becomes a dunk, or it becomes something other than you dribbling until, okay, it's time for me to shoot.
By the way, the Warriors have the exact same availability roster-wise tonight as they had last night. Anthony Slater saying Klay Thompson is a go. Still no Steph Curry, obviously. Still no Andrew Wiggins. So what you saw last night is the team that you will see tonight. 888-957-9570. This is John in San Francisco. What's going on, John?
John, gentlemen, thank you for the conversation. It's fascinating. The last couple of games, we're all trying to figure out what happened. And listening to you guys a moment ago, the defense came back. And I always thought defense, as everyone knows, is effort. The season started with that situation with Draymond and Poole. And I think that funk floated over the defense the whole year, home or away. They just scored more at home, but they had no defense on the road. I want to propose to you guys an idea. I want to hear what you guys think about this. Steph being out, Andrew Wiggins being gone, and the team collectively being worried about Andrew, concerned about him. What if all that situation ended up being a psychological reset to a head problem, not a coaching problem, not a talent problem, not a home or road problem? Maybe this situation reset their relationship. I want to hear what you guys say about that, and thanks for sharing the conversation.
John, thanks for the phone call, and thank you for listening. I hadn't thought of it that way. I hadn't thought of, nothing does put the world back into perspective like a real world problem. I'm not talking about NBA problems or basketball problems or tonight's opponent's problems, but a real problem, personal problem, a family problem. Maybe it does reset the room. I don't know. I don't even want to really, I don't want to speculate on what the team's mental state is, but I do think there is, as much as you could have, a blessing in disguise going on here, because Curry and Wiggins are so part and parcel of this team's success. For them to find a degree of consistent success without either one of those guys in their lineup is just a better harbinger of things to come for everyone, you would hope. And I hope that that's the way it's washing over the team. I don't know if it's a massive mental reset because they've all, found real world religion based on Andrew Wiggins' personal problems that have him away from the team. I don't know. I don't even know how much the players know about what's going on with Andrew Wiggins' absence.
They almost certainly know something
sure,
about it.
Sure.
But I also think that's too facile an answer. I think sometimes it's not as satisfying, but sometimes it's just better to look at the simple solutions. Simple solution A is they're playing at home. Simple solution B is they've played two teams that are terrible, and one team that suddenly changed its makeup and hasn't figured out who it is yet, and the other team is a team that's never gotten going, so that they're hitting teams at the right time. Because it's not just, what's your record against their record? It's how are they doing now when you're playing them? The Clippers, 0-3, they have no idea who they are right now. New Orleans doesn't have Zion, and they've been playing 250 basketball for like a quarter of the season now. Portland is Damian Lillard and nothing else, and Houston is god-awful. That might be it.
Right, and it took, 12 threes out of Klay to beat a god-awful Houston team, right?
Well, that's how they won by 15 at home, and, they did fine enough. And maybe that's what this is. Maybe it's not something cosmic or ethereal. Maybe it's they're hitting either bad teams or teams that it's good to hit right now. And like I said, that's why I think the road games that are coming up, the 8 and 10 that are waiting for them, that's what's going to define who they are, what they are, and if they are in fact ready to make the leap they've been threatening to make for 3/4 of the season now.
I think all of that's fair. I think all of that's in play. And defense. A little bit of defense goes a long way in this league. It truly does. You do not have to play 4 quarters of throw it down, oh my God, defense to be the better defensive basketball team in an NBA game. You put together 10 consecutive nasty defensive possessions, you can look like the better team. And that's what the Warriors have figured out here. A little bit of defense goes a really, really long way for this team. And when they take a little bit of defense and stretch that over the course of a quarter, a half, the Clippers were held to 35 second-half points last night. I think in the game before that, it was in the 40s. The game before that, it wasn't too far out of the 40s. The game before that, it was in the 50s. They have really battened down the hatches. I don't know what is happening at halftime. I don't think it would even be accurate to say that Steve is coming up with fire and brimstone speeches or anything like that. There is nothing dramatic happening here. The team is finally picking up, I think, the game plan that the coaching staff is putting down. And the fact that they're doing that without 2 of their best players of their starting 5 makes this gravy. Because you wouldn't think the Warriors would be playing some of their best stretch of basketball the entire year, missing 2 of their starting 5. But here they are. And when they are playing with that scored against them, I think looking at the quality of opponent means a little bit less to me because the Warriors are, rendered a lesser than opponent with the absence of Curry and Wiggins.
But the teams they're playing are easy to defend right now. So that's the other part of this. And this is not to say that they don't get credit for 4 really superb defensive efforts because
They do.
They do. But you have to keep it in any number of contexts. And one of those contexts is, well, who are you doing it against? Play better teams. Let's see if you can hold a team under 110. If you can do that, then you fix the problem. But what they get credit for right now is they faced 4 beatable teams and they beat them. And, until they sort of establish who they want to be, this is still who they are. They're 3 games over 500 in a conference where 3 games over 500 puts you in 5th. It means that all of a sudden you don't have to worry about the play-in game.
Warriors win tonight. Suns lose their next game. They're in a dead heat for 4th. That's where a 3 or 4 game winning streak changes things so dramatically here. And the Warriors, for the very first time this season, are looking to climb 4 games over 500, which makes tonight's could maybe have been labeled a trap game be removed from any trap game consideration. It's a back-to-back. You're going to need all hands on deck to beat a very good Brandon Ingram and a bad Pelicans team around him. Handle your business at home. Get 4 games over 500. We freaking dare you. It would be a really nice way to step into the weekend. And then, what do you know? The game in Los Angeles is going to happen with Steph Curry, without LeBron James. I even heard that D'Angelo Russell's questionable for Sunday. So you could be catching a Lakers team at the right time to catch that Lakers team. And the Warriors are officially going to offer no apologies, no quarter for who they get to play right now because a monster of a schedule is coming up.
No, the context about who you're playing, as much as I rattled on about it, becomes irrelevant now. It's just, this is what the schedule tells you to do. So you either do it or you don't.
Well, I remember yesterday I said, just win at all costs, doesn't matter what you do. You said, no, matters defensively. The Warriors got both.
Well, if they do what they're supposed to do defensively, the other happens. It's just, but why I said performing defensively matters is because at some point they have to define who they are. And in a year in which very few teams are really elite defensively, that's the way, if you're zigging when everybody else is zagging and you're going the way that successful teams do in the playoffs, which is defend like hell, that's a way better way to do this. Because if they defend, they win, which takes care of itself. But if you defend in the playoffs, you win a lot.
Dauber up on the Golden State Warriors. Head coach Steve Kerr.
It does feel like this is our best stretch because of what we're doing defensively. It's significant in that, we've held our serve here so far at home. Another big one tomorrow. Hopefully Steph coming back soon. So I think, things are looking up.
Things are looking up for the Warriors. And again, if you're looking for the Warriors to look more like the Warriors of old, having monstrous third quarters is part and parcel of their DNA. It's part of who they are. It is part of this entire dynasty's identity. And, do you remember? Let me ask you, do you remember when Steph Curry would go ahead and not even have to play fourth quarters? You probably remember that, right? I do.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, those good memories. Where the Warriors would be so far out in front with 12 minutes left to play, everybody else gets the rest of the night off. Not quite there, but it's starting around the corner. Teams feeling good, looking good, look good, feel good, play good. Hopefully that formula is in place tonight because you play good. You're 4 games over 500 for the first time, and you're enjoying your best winning percentage of the entire season right about the time where, if you're going to be a team in the playoffs that needs to be considered, you're going to start showing the rest of the league that they need to think of you right now. And I guarantee you the league is thinking more about the Golden State Warriors this week than just last week.
Oh, no. Well, anytime anybody's winning 4 in a row in this conference.
Yeah, right.
That's
it's like a 9-game winning streak right now.
Yeah, that's incredible. I don't know how else to put it. It's just there are 10 teams that are exactly the same. So if you want to put your head above the rest of the whack-a-mole table, win some games in a row.
But the one team that is not the same and has regressed since their big move at the trade deadline, or I guess the Westbrook edition was more of a buyout than a trade deadline move, Ray. So let's get that right. We like to correct in real time here.
But the deadline emanates either side. They changed their rosters. What happened?
Are you giving me grace?
No. The trade deadline starts really about 10 days before the trade deadline,
right,
and extends about 10 days after, because you're still able to change things about your roster.
The Clippers are fascinating right now for all the reasons you don't want to be fascinating, but there's a morbid fascination. And that is probably the best way to describe the NBA's media's interest in Russell Westbrook. It's like a morbid fascination at this point.